Over to you, Paloma.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's WEConnect International webinar. My name is Paloma Marin. I am the Regional Director for WEConnect International in Europe. I'm delighted that you have joined us for today's webinar, Leveraging Content Marketing to Upscale Your Business. So our presenter today is Kathryn Strachan of Coffeehouse. Coffeehouse is a WEConnect International certified women's business enterprise based in Edinburgh. Kathryn will be discussing how to boost your online presence and maximize every opportunity by supporting your business and positioning yourselves as an industry leader through a winning content strategy. You will also be learning how excellent search engine optimized content can accelerate your business to the next level by captivating and inspiring your audience to learn more about you. I'm just going to ask you if you can please to keep background noise to a minimum. If you're able to stay on mute, use the chat functionality if you have any questions that you might have, and we'll have time for discussion and questions at the end. If I can also ask you to please keep your cameras off until the Q&A just to avoid any bandwidth issues. And Kathryn will be speaking for about 40 to 45 minutes, and the session will be recorded, so you'll be able to go back and listen to it if you wish. And that's about it. So Kathryn, thank you so much for presenting for us today, and it's over to you.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me, but let me know if not. Welcome today to my talk on how to leverage your content marketing to upscale your business. So I am Kathryn Strachan. I am the Managing Director of Coffeehouse. Coffeehouse is a fast-growing content marketing agency specializing in technology and fintech. So we work with some really exciting brands across the technology space, everybody from Facebook to companies that do very niche things like biometric technology for airports or telecom expense management. We do quite a lot of work in fintech as well. And when it comes to our services, we essentially support content all the way through its life cycle. So we help companies build their core messaging at the very early stages, help them understand who it is that they're talking to. And then after we have all those essential ingredients, we create the strategy. The strategy is fundamental for your success, for creating ongoing long form content and moving into content production. So quite often content production is the tip of the iceberg. You know, when you see that really great blog, there's a lot of thought and understanding that goes on before that. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is that process and what you can do and how you can help channel some of the really great insights we've built by working with some very well-known brands to make sure that your business can have the impact you want it to have, so that you can make sure that your business can grow and reach new heights. So let's start at the beginning. What is the value of content marketing? Why do you need to do content marketing, and why should it be part of your marketing mix? So there's some really great research into the value of content marketing. And this research shows that content marketing costs 62% less than traditional marketing, but produces 3 times the leads. It also shows that 93% of B2B marketers use content marketing. We've all heard the expression, content is king, so I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise to most of you. The research also shows that 78% of CMOs believe custom content is the future of marketing. I certainly think this is true as well. Understanding your audience and then creating really hyper-specific, hyper-personalized content that speaks directly to them is only becoming more essential as the world produces more content, as there's more options available for people, and as you need to cut through that noise. You really need to do something different. You really need to make an impact and make sure that the content you create is not just regurgitated information that you found on the internet, but it's actually something that is customized and unique to your brand and truly connects with your audience. The same research also shows that content marketing produces 6 times higher conversion rates than if you don't do content marketing. So for adopters of content marketing, they see 6 times higher conversion rates than non-adopters. When you look at this research, it almost becomes obvious. How could you not leverage content marketing? How could you not have this as part of your marketing strategy and as part of your marketing mix? So this is a really great quote from Forbes, but Forbes says the most successful marketing strategies are built around content, period. And I think that's so true, because it doesn't matter what marketing strategy you look at, they all include content in some shape or form. So even a PPC campaign is going to need customized content. It's going to need good content to send people to. PR, social, all of it revolves around content. So content should be a pillar stone for anything that you're going to do when it comes to marketing. And that then means that you really need to think about how you communicate your brand and your core messaging and who you are and what you need to say when you start creating these conversations with your audience. So content marketing produces lots of really great benefits. I mean, I think of content marketing as the most important way to open conversations and nurture relationships with your audience. To me, it's not about just another blog article. It's about having an important conversation and connecting with your audience. But it also helps you increase organic reach. So leveraging SEO, making sure that your articles are optimized in the right way, helps you get in front of audience who are looking for your services, but don't know your brand yet. It helps you establish authority. So sharing your expert insights, sharing your expertise helps establish you as an authority within the industry, so that people come to know your name and your brand as being the place to go for the most up-to-date information on X or Y or Z. As I mentioned, it helps you kickstart really important conversations to educate prospects. We do almost all of our work in the technology and fintech space, and it's even more important there because our brands are often doing things that are brand new, that have never been seen before, and they almost need to re-educate people. They need to convince people why this new way of doing it is way better than the old world, and why people shouldn't be scared, and why they need to, come on board and start using the latest technology. Having those conversations nurtures relationships so you can build an online following. And all of this accumulates to help you increase conversion rates and so much more. There's so many benefits of content marketing. I think you'd be amiss to not include content marketing as part of your marketing strategy. But that word strategy, so it all starts with creating the right strategy. Your strategy acts as a foundation for all future endeavors. So you cannot, as most of us will know, you cannot create successful content or create successful anything without the strategy in place. You need your roadmap. You need to know where you're going and how you're going to get there. And your strategy helps you achieve that. There's some really interesting research into the value of content strategies and how it actually helps people achieve that. So this research shows that 53% of marketers in organizations where content marketing was most effective had a documented content marketing plan. And can we turn off our sound, please? It's really distracting. Thank you. The research shows that 53% of marketers where content marketing was most effective had a documented content marketing plan. So that's really surprising when you look at the graph to the right, because this graph shows that only 37% of companies actually have a documented content marketing plan. So that means a lot of companies are trying to do content marketing without a documented strategy, or without a strategy at all, or with only rough ideas in their heads. And it's not surprising that they're struggling to produce it on a regular basis. What happens if you don't have a content strategy is that it falls into ad hoc. So you produce a blog 1 month, perhaps not the next, and then perhaps a month after that, you do two blogs. And it's not consistent, and it's not reliable, and it's not constantly showing up for your audience. It's showing up when you have an idea or have some time, or manage to make it round. Having the strategy in place makes sure that you're doing it on a regular, consistent basis, which is required for having a success in content marketing. But before you build a strategy, you need to take a little bit of a step back, because you need to understand all the core messaging that I was talking about earlier. So you need to understand your audience. Who are they? What do they need to know when they come to you? What's keeping them awake at night? What worries and concerns do they have? And how can you help them to make their lives better, to improve their understanding of something, or convince them ultimately to go with you. So there's some really interesting research into the value of understanding your audience and why you need to make sure that you have this right before you actually go into your marketing. So for example, 72% of consumers say they only engage with personalized messaging. You can only do personalized messaging if you understand who your audience is. So if you're creating vanilla marketing fluff, 82% of people won't engage with you. And that then means that you need to understand who they are in order to overcome that. This research also shows that 70% of consumers say that a company understanding how they use product or services is super important to winning their business. Who wants to be sold to in a way that doesn't resonate with them, that isn't relevant to them? The answer is nobody. Nobody wants to be sold like that too. They want you to know, companies, people want you to know that you understand them and what they need and how your product or service is going to benefit their lives specifically. So in order to do that, in order to understand who your people are, you need to create customer avatars. It's surprising the amount of brands that I talk to that don't have these, that don't have customer avatars, who've never taken the time to define who they're trying to reach, who they are, both on a demographic level as well as a deeper psychological level, and make sure that this is part of your marketing strategy. So customer avatars essentially set out who you want to work with, their pain points and everything essential about them, those deeper psychological triggers, as well as, their top level demographics, and basically everything they are. Who are they and what do they need from you in order to build a successful relationship? This is really important because if you don't do this, what happens is you create vanilla marketing fluff. And in a world that has far too much content, you end up falling on deaf ears. So I always give this example of, say that you're in a big crowded room and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people there. And you're saying, hey, everybody, come look at me, come talk to me, come talk to me. Nobody's going to come talk to you because what you're saying is not relevant to them. But if you say, hey, guy in the red shirt, how are you? That guy in the red shirt is probably going to turn around and reply to you. In fact, you'll probably get multiple men in red shirts turning around and replying to you because they believe you're speaking to them. We really take this to heart when we create our content, so much so that we quite often imagine speaking to somebody on the other side of the screen. So what if there was one person on the other side of the screen? Who would they be and what would you be saying to them? So taking the time to detail your customer avatars, to understand who they are and how you can help create meaningful content that helps them, that actually helps them, rather than just trying to sell them something, has quite a lot of really important benefits. So it helps you create laser sharp messaging. So it helps you define your messaging to the point where it sounds like you're speaking directly to that one person. It makes that person sit up and go, oh, this brand gets me. They understand me. They're going to be able to help me with this problem. Now, of course, it's going to be more than one person. It's going to be a group of people who have the same problems, who have the same profiles, and who that messaging resonates with. And that's far more effective than trying to sell to everybody. I hate when brands say that to me. Who do you sell to? We sell to everybody, because the answer is no, you don't. You don't sell to everybody. And when you understand who you sell to, it makes it much easier to identify the ideas and topics your audience actually wants. So what kind of content is going to be beneficial and meaningful to them? And how can you deliver valuable, meaningful, personalized content? And how can you align with their core beliefs to show you understand them, to show that you get their problems, get their struggles, and can help them overcome them? So how you start is by creating a fictional avatar. So really good question to first pose is, if you could work with anyone, who would it be? Who is that person? And how are you going to help them? So your customer avatar should include things like how old they are, what gender they are, what their work position is, if you're B2B. These are very top level demographics. They're going to help you with data segmentation. But then you want to get a little bit deeper. So you want to do things like their goals. What is it that they want to achieve? What are their pain points? What's keeping them awake at 3 a.m.? What motivates them? What gets them out of bed in the morning? How do they view the world? And then what are their content habits? So where are they already spending time online? It's going to be much easier for you to go to them than to expect them to come to you, especially if you're only just getting started with your content marketing. So understanding where they spend time online, what social media channels they use, which then means that you don't need to do all the social media channels, but can choose the one that's going to work best to connect you with your audience. What publications do they read? What sort of content do they like and want and need? When you understand all of this, it then becomes much easier to start defining your content strategy, to know what sort of content you should create. You might also want to ask yourself questions like, what sort of information do they need to know before speaking to somebody in your sales team? So chances are your sales team is going to hear a lot of the same questions. People are going to be asking them again and again and again, the same questions. And rather than having your sales team take time out of their day to answer the same exact question in the same exact way, creating content that caters to that, make sure that people can find the answers they need when they need them, but also saves your sales team from having to have answer the same question again and again and again. And I always say that, if there's a percentage of people who are asking this question, there's a whole lot of other people who aren't even asking, who have these questions, but when they can't find the information on your website are just leaving. So it's really important to think about the information they need to know before speaking to your sales team and some of those most common questions. You may also want to think about the search terms your customers are using to find product or solutions like yours. So what is it that they are typing into Google when they go to Google? Where do they already spend their time online? So that's really great for understanding how you can go find them and how you can reach them. What followers, publications, platforms do they regularly engage with? I can almost guarantee you that your audience will log into a social media platform probably every day. Nobody's going to log into your website every day, or at least not at first. Maybe when you're creating lots of really great content, they'll regularly show up, but very few people get out of bed and look at a website. Most of us look at our phones in bed and our LinkedIn or Twitter or any of these platforms that we engage really regularly with. I know I'm guilty of looking at LinkedIn from my bed. So now that we kind of understand what a customer avatar is, I want to give you an example. So this is an example of a fictional customer avatar and somebody that our business might look to target. So we've got Freddie, he's male, he's 37, he's married, he's got one child, he lives in Leith, Edinburgh. So these are really great top level information. It's really helpful to know that he might have a job like a head of marketing or marketing manager at a fintech company. In B2B, there's a decision-making tree. So it's unlikely that you're only going to have one person weighing in on the decision. So it's important to identify that. So where is this person in the decision-making, and are they going to have to report to somebody else? So here we have point of contact, not final decision maker. I get challenged quite a lot that, B2B doesn't need customer avatars. And I would say actually they do, perhaps even more so, because the things that we're often worried about at work are things that are keeping us awake at 3 a.m. We're far more likely to be awake at 3 a.m. worried about work than we are our personal lives. But in B2B, it is different because you have to think about that decision-making tree. So you have to think about each of the people who are in it and what they're going to need from you, because it's going to change. It's going to be different for the first point of contact than the final budget holder or the final decision maker. They're going to need different information from you. So then we go into his core values and beliefs. So desire to make the world a better place, strives for positive change and disruption that provides genuine value to others, adaptable, resilient, open-minded, too busy and feels overwhelmed with his own expectations and how to meet them. So that's really important to know as a business, because then you know that you need to create a service that can take as much off his plate or as little as he wants. that allows him that flexibility, that adaptability, that allows him to explore, what is going to work best for him, but also allows him to take a lot off his plate if he's too busy. He's unable to plan for 5 to 10 years ahead, which makes him feel unsafe. Lack of control, uncertainty, fear of the unknown keeps him awake at night. So you need to be a known factor. You need to provide proof of your reliability, of your credibility, and how you can help him maintain control, at least around this area of his life. He wishes people working for his company understood the brand/product fully. So a lot of people aren't going to understand a new product, especially in the fintech or technology space. So your job as a provider, or our job in a provider, is then to help him communicate that, to help him, teach people about the brand and product and make sure that they can understand it fully. So what does he need? He's looking for someone to make his life easier. Services that are good quality, that he can trust will be done correctly and on budget. And this is where, you start to see the B2B as well, because you have the CEO, so final decision maker, and the CEO is going to need something different than Freddie. The CEO is going to need to be assured that he's doing business with an established and reliable agency at a fair value. So great, now that we know all of this, we can start to put it into practice, and we can start to look for ways that we can connect and build that relationship with this customer. So once you understand your audience, everything else is going to fall into place. It makes it much easier to then create a strategy, to then start building your content and your content marketing. So when you have these insights, you can then shape them and form them into a strategy, and a strategy that is going to connect you with your audience. Is going to help you build those relationships. It's going to help you establish yourself as an authority, and is generally going to help you make the impact you want to make. So I want to tell you about an approach we quite often use. So this is called content pillars. Content pillars are a really great way to structure campaigns because they allow you to build around something. So it allows you to build around a term that you want to be known for, and allows you to feed leads up as well as down. So I'm going to explain that approach to you today. It's really useful for us for creating funnel-based content that works across the whole entire funnel. And this is what I'm going to explain to you now, and hopefully it's really beneficial to you as well. So the first thing you want to do when you're creating a content pillar is select a head term. So this is a term that you want to be known for. It should align with your deeper business objectives and center around unique selling points. So a really great way to start thinking about what that head term might be is by asking yourself, if you could be known for one thing, what would it be? We're then going to create a campaign around that thing. So head terms, when you select them, should align with your deeper business objectives and market positioning. So you want something obviously that's going to be relevant to you. You also want something that is going to align with one of these customer avatars that we talked about before. You might have multiple customer avatars, and that's totally fine, but you want to identify the one customer avatar that this is going to connect with. You want to be relevant to that customer's needs and desires and pain points. So the campaign should not just be, left field. It needs to connect with all those really great insights that we were talking about before. And it needs to act to build awareness and nurture prospects throughout the funnel. So creating this campaign is going to nurture them through the funnel, but you want it to build awareness and drive leads from not knowing your brand all the way through to converting. So once you have a head term, you then choose core terms. So your core terms are going to be more mid-funnel. They are going to act as a middle of the column, if we think of it as a content pillar, to support the head term. It's going to build out that picture by adding content to your campaign. And this is often quite a strategic sweet spot. It's normally where long tail keywords come in. It helps you to provide a strategic focus to your content creation. Of course, it should still be aligned with your business objectives and customer avatars. And here you might start pulling in other customer avatars as well, because different core terms can work for different audiences. So if you have SEMrush is a really great tool and it actually helps you do this. So you can choose a head term like content marketing and then go to their topic research and find terms that are related to them. So in this case with content marketing, you might look at things like return on investment or landing pages, and all of this is going to be, the core terms of mid-funnel content. So it's really helpful. If you don't have SEMrush, they do a 2-week free trial. So I definitely recommend it. We can send over the link after because we are partners with SEMrush. They're a really great tool. We use them for everything we do. And then once you have that, you then want to choose a subtopic content. So subtopic content support the core term to improve its visibility and ultimately gets it to rank. So these are often in the form of a question. So you ask your sales team what questions they're hearing from prospects. That's a really great way to source questions. They support the core term and they help boost visibility for these core terms. SEMrush, again, helps you identify this as well. So when you click on landing page, you can see a list of all of the questions that people are asking around landing pages. You can see the volume of that subtopic, see the difficulty. Makes it really easy. This campaign is going to work across the funnel. So it's really helpful and essential to talk about what is that funnel and what sorts of content work at different stages. So top of funnel is normally the awareness stage. So at this stage, people are starting to look for information on a certain topic and don't know your brand yet, but are looking for information, looking for help solving a particular problem. So at this stage, you often see things like thought leadership articles, social media posts and videos, SEO optimized websites. As they move down the funnel, they then move into the consideration stage. So at the consideration stage, they're not deciding if they need this service, they are deciding if they want to work with you. So these are often things like case studies, product landing pages, mid-funnel blog articles that talk about your approach, what makes you different, shares your expertise, drip email campaigns, newsletters, things where you are talking more about your brand and what you do and how you can help people. And then at the bottom of the funnel is when they start to either purchase or slightly past purchasing. So something like a post-conversion guide or how-to product guides, but they are right before the line or right after the line at the bottom of the funnel. This is really helpful to think about because all the content you do should have a place in the funnel and should work across it. So when we create these content campaigns, normally we structure them around one long form piece of content that acts as a piece of awareness. And then we have some consideration pieces in the middle that connect to that content pillar. And then at the bottom, we have a downloadable piece of content that acts as a conversion piece. So it's not surprising when you look at the research where people spend most of their time creating content. So 50% of content is top of funnel. That makes sense. It's the biggest part of the funnel. You've got mid funnel at 22% and then late stage at 14 and post sale at 11. So that kind of makes sense because you can start to see how that funnel works. But one of the things that I see a lot of brands do is that they only focus on one stage of the funnel. So they only focus on top of funnel content. And when we come in, we say, well, what about your mid funnel, your bottom of funnel? Like you need to think about those things too, and help them put that into place. But if you aren't aware of the whole entire mix, and it's very easy to just do top of funnel or only create case studies and only do bottom of funnel content. But it's really important if you want to nurture that relationship and nurture prospects through that your content works at each stage. So you have content for top of funnel, you have content for mid funnel, and you have content for bottom of funnel. So this is a bit more research into the types of content that work at each stage. It doesn't have to just be written content. It's social media content. It's everything you do in your marketing mix. So to build brand awareness, in-person events is, one of the top 3 ways to do that. To secure events, in-person leads show up here too, webinars, online events, ebooks and guides. So you can see from this slide how different pieces of content work at different stages. and how some pieces of content can appear at different stages. So you can use a blog post to build brand awareness and also to nurture leads. When you start to think about your content, it's important to think about all of these things because, it shouldn't just be just written form. You need a marketing mix, which is why it's a really great idea to have a marketing manager or a marketing consultant or an outsourced CMO who can help you see the whole landscape and understand the whole entire landscape and how you're going to fit each thing into it. So I want to tell you a bit more about this content pillar campaign. So as I mentioned, what we normally do is we have one long form guide in the middle. So this is a long form guide that's normally about 2,000 words. It's going to target that head term, and it is very top of funnel, very awareness. At mid of funnel, as those core terms, we have short form guides. So these are more about 1,000 words. They're very mid funnel, so they're more attached to the brand. So they're more about their approach or their unique mythology or, their specific, what they have on offer. And these connect to the content pillar. So the content pillar should have hyperlinks to each of these, and you're basically building a web and a journey for people. And then at the bottom, you have a downloadable piece of content. So this could be like a downloadable checklist or template or something that people are going to find useful and something that people are going to want to enter their details to download. Now, this campaign works really well because it helps feed leads up by helping you get visibility over that head term. The head term is normally associated to a fat tail keyword, which means a keyword that has a lot of volume and is normally very difficult to rank for. But it also feeds down. So it helps you give people something to convert to without having to commit to a sales call. Because not everybody who reads your blog content is going to want to do a sales call. So it helps feed up as well as down, and it works across that funnel that I was just telling you about. And it's a really great way to structure your campaigns to make sure that you are thinking across the funnel, to make sure that you're thinking about your customers at every stage of the journey, and that you can maximize SEO to rank for high volume keywords, but you also have something that is a little bit more soft touch for people to convert to rather than, signing up for consulting or a sales call. And then once your sales team, once they've downloaded it, once they've entered their details to download that piece of content, your sales team can then get in touch and say, oh, well, what did you think about that template? Was it helpful? And, can start the conversation on that foot rather than, oh, are you ready to buy now? Because not everybody is going to be ready to buy now. In fact, I think research shows only 3% of people at any one time are actually in the active buying phase. So you need to nurture them when they're not in that phase. So creating content across the funnel allows you to keep prospects engaged and maximize sales opportunities, even when faced with long sales cycles. So this allows you to make sure that you have that relationship, even with the people who are not in the 3% stage, because then when they do get to that stage, you're the first person they think about. You're the first person they go to. So especially for us, because we work with technology brands have a sales cycle of 6 to 9 months. And I always say to them, how are you going to keep people engaged throughout that time? How are you going to help nurture them from the first time they talk to somebody or the first time they even start to think about it, or even before that, to when they actually convert? You need content as touch points to nurture them through that sales cycle. So that brings me to almost the end of my presentation today. Before we start to open the floor, I want to tell you about an ebook we created. So we created an ebook where we interviewed 25 CMOs from some of the largest technology brands in the world to find out, what they've been up to, what they've been thinking about, how COVID challenged their marketing, and what they're looking forward to going forward. So this is some really great, really hefty research. The report itself is, I believe, 50 pages, but you obviously don't have to read it all. But this is a really great insights into B2B marketing, into what technology CMOs are thinking about, and you really get the inside scoop with it. So I would definitely recommend that you use this link here to go and download it, take a look, and let me know what you think. So I am more than happy now to answer the floor to any questions. I really hope that you enjoyed the presentation.
I just want to say thank you so much, Kathryn, for that. It was super insightful, and personally, coming from a marketing background, I couldn't agree more with how key it is to know your customer inside out, speak directly to them through your content strategy, thinking about what keeps them up at night, what they truly care about, what platforms they're engaging with. And thank you for your time this morning.
It's okay, not a worries at all.
If anyone in the audience wants to ask any questions live, feel free to come off camera or pop them in the chat.
Stop share as well, so that it's not as intimidating.
Hi, I have a question. Hello, Kathryn.
Hi, hey,
Hi, how you doing?
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. That was great. Really, just really to the point. So informative. Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask a question about time, because I know you kind of mentioned lots of different activity that you can do in order to engage potential clients, your audience. If you're limited on time, like how would you suggest the best place, where would you suggest the best place to start or to put your energies in until you have more time to kind of start branching out into other areas?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that really depends on your audience and where they're already spending time, because the quickest way is going to be to go to them. So, you know, for most B2B, that's probably going to be LinkedIn, because most people in B2B land are constantly on LinkedIn. So, you know, if I had very limited time and I was trying to market to a B2B audience, I would probably make sure that I was posting like once a day on LinkedIn and sharing really interesting, relevant content. And then perhaps, you know, I would do, I mean, you need longer form content as well, because with social, you only get a very quick chance to like share your insights. But then perhaps once a month, I would, you know, once a month, I would do a longer piece of content, whether that was a webinar that people could attend or a blog article or something more in depth that they could read if they were interested in you and, you know, what you had been saying. But I think if I had absolutely no time and needed to start somewhere, I would probably start with LinkedIn. And that is actually what I did personally at Coffeehouse before we got a marketing manager. You know, a long time ago, before we had a marketing team, I started with LinkedIn. So I didn't have any time. I was an entrepreneur, you know, it was one person business. But I started posting on LinkedIn about 2 years ago, posting, you know, once a day, which is about 4 to 5 times a week. And, you know, that then allowed me to build my personal brand and allowed me to build an audience. So now, you know, I have a really healthy LinkedIn following. And then when we do all this other marketing stuff, so when we do events, when we do, you know, when we create thought leadership pieces, when we do all of this, we already have people who are ready and, you know, want to engage with it, which then makes Kinga's job perhaps a little bit easier. Kinga's our marketing manager. I think she's here. She's normally here, but yeah, it makes her job a little bit easier because they already know us. So I would look at where they are and then I would go to them. Probably going to be, because I know your business, probably going to be LinkedIn for you and being really active on there, and then making sure that once a month is a bare minimum, you have a longer piece of something for them to engage with, whether it's a blog article or an event or, you know, something where they can get more of you if, you know, what they're getting on LinkedIn is not quite enough and they want more, which hopefully they will. I'm sure they will, because you're pretty awesome. Yeah, they can then go and engage with you, whether it's attending one of your webinars or, you know, reading an article or, you know, something that they can do to get more of you, because they will be hungry.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much.
It's okay.
I can see we have a question on the chat from Louise Roberts. Thank you for your question. She's asking, how often, if at all, should you update your content?
Well, it depends on the content. Some pieces of content can be relevant for, you know, a long time. It can be relevant. So it's called evergreen content. Evergreen content has a much longer shelf life than something that is topical. So an article you wrote a year ago on COVID is probably not going to be relevant anymore today, but an article you wrote a year ago on what is asset management? Just made that up. But what is asset management is probably still going to be relevant, because what is asset management is not going to change. And what you want to do is, be looking at how your content's performing, what is perhaps stopped performing. So topical content will stop performing because, a article a year ago on, I don't know, Christmas or whatever was happening a year ago. It's not quite Christmas, but whatever was happening a year ago, people aren't going to read it now because that was a year ago, so Top Insights 2019 is obviously no longer relevant. And what you then want to do is go back and update it. So it's about being aware of what content you have, how it's performing, how your audience is engaging with it, and then making sure that you go back and update it when it needs to be. But there's not really like a hard and fast rule for like how often you should update it. In terms of publishing, I recommend that you probably publish one blog a week. Google likes when you publish new content. Your audience likes when you publish new content, because when you publish new content, it gives them a chance to engage with you. So if you can, I would suggest at least once a week. But it depends on your market, your industry. Some brands need to do way more. So the SaaS space is a space that's heavily inundated with content. So if you're trying to keep up with the likes of Xero and QuickBooks, etc., you need to produce as much content as they're producing to be taken as seriously as a brand as they are. So it's about looking at your competitors, how often they're publishing, and then creating content that is meaningful and engaging for your audience. Not all brands need to produce super high volume of content. Other industries can get away with less content, but every time you publish content, you're basically expanding your digital territory. So if you think of your website as your home, that's your property. And as you expand it, it grows and grows and grows, and the more property you have, the more likely you are to accommodate more people onto that property, right? And the more likely you are to become a real estate Mongol, or established as a property landowner. So you want to be growing and maintaining and cultivating your website. I think that's perhaps one of the biggest mistakes I see people do as well, is they create a website and then they just leave it. They don't think of it as something that should be maintained and cultivated and nurtured and grown like a piece of property or a piece of land should be. They just think of it as like, okay, we did a website, so now we don't have to do anything to it for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But that's not how websites work. It needs to be cultivated and maintained and nurtured, rather than one and done.
Another question from the audience. If you have an international business, would you make separate avatars for each location?
I guess it depends on the avatar, because some are going to change massively depending on the market and the location that you are. Some are just going to be top level surface changes. So I mean, the deep worries of a marketing manager, might be the same in France as they are in Germany, because they're not that far apart. But the concerns of a marketing manager in France and a CFO in Asia might be wildly different. So it depends on who they are and how much overlap there is. Quite often there is overlap with customer avatars. It also depends on your priorities when it comes to being an international business, because a lot of international businesses, especially the much bigger ones, will have separate websites for separate locations. So, you'll be automatically directed to their US website or the UK website, depending on your location. And then you obviously want to tailor that messaging to be specific to that person who's reading it from that location. So it's about, before you can really decide if you need different content for each location, you need to decide who is it in these locations, what is it they want and need, and how much does that change based on, their location.
Actually, I have a question. Hi, Kathryn. So first of all, on behalf of WeConnect, thank you so much for doing this for us. My question, though, is quite personal. When I see some businesses putting out content out there that's not at all related to their business, but very relevant to the world we're in today. I mean, we've all gone through COVID, Black Lives Matter, elections, etc. How important do you think it is to put some sort of stand or comment or content that is relevant, but not necessarily related to your business, of course, without being too controversial, but do you think that's important? I mean, obviously with social, there's so many things affecting our world. What's your stand on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think those things are important, and I think that they are related to your business because it's about your values as a business. It's about who you are as people. So, when we're talking about business related content, it doesn't just have to be your product or your service or your expertise in content marketing. It can be your take on flexible working or your take on, any of the very important social movements that are happening, because those are values of your business. Your business is perhaps champions diversity and inclusion, so then should, obviously talk about that. It's about your audience and, knowing what they want to talk about as well. So, I mean, it's like when you go to a dinner party, and if you were in a dinner party full of really conservative people, you probably wouldn't go in there and say something like really super liberal, because, it would either be ignored or, create some sort of ruckus. If your audience was super, super conservative and, you were marketing to super conservative people, then you might want to tread very carefully on, what you're saying. But if you're really passionate about these things, you're probably not going to be working with people who also aren't passionate about them. So if you're very liberal, you're probably unlikely to work with a customer base that's exclusively conservative, because, their views on everything is going to massively conflict, and there's going to be a massive culture conflict there. So, I mean, I think it is important. It is important to talk about your values. It is important to be human. It's important to show yourself as human, to show your brand as human. I don't think anybody this day and age actually buys from a faceless corporation. They want to buy from companies that they know are making a positive impact in the world, who align with their cultural values. We just did a talk the other day with a psychologist who was talking about the psychology behind these customer avatars, and we were then talking about the implementation side of it. But one of the things he said is often about how a brand makes you feel, rather than like the practicalities of it. So glasses are a really great example of it, because we don't actually buy the glasses for the frame, right? It's not the frame that helps us to see the world better. It's the actual glasses. But when people go to buy glasses, what they are buying is a frame, because they're buying how the frames make them feel, or how they make them look, or these ones look cool and these ones don't look cool. And it's all about how that product makes them feel, rather than its actual functionality of it, because it doesn't matter what frames you have. That's not going to help you see better, but it's going to make you feel different. So quite often we forget about these emotions behind our marketing, but it's really important, because almost all of, like, if you look at the human brain and the part that's dedicated to logic and reason and the part that's dedicated to emotions, most of the human brain is dedicated towards emotions. So it's about how brands make us feel as well. It's about, being understood and represented, and, having a cultural value, and a brand that makes you feel good, and a brand that makes you feel good that by working with them, you're doing your part to benefit the world, as much as it is the what you're going to deliver, and that product or service. So I would say that it is super important.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Kathryn. I've got a question for you. Thank you so much. That's been so insightful, just to take a moment to reflect, to see some of the things that I am doing that I think that's great. A lot that I can see I'm not doing that I need to take a reflection to see how I can implement. We're a social impact branding and visual design consultancy. I'm still very much in startup mode. So when I look at the funnel, I'm very much about the content I'm creating is more about awareness, about what are the values, what do we stand for, what are some of the insights I'm seeing out there, and how are brands being much more purposeful and mindful about where, as conscious consumers, are purchasing. One of the scenarios I find myself in is some of the clients I'm working with, big, large corporations. It takes a while to build up that case study, because by the time you've built a brand story, you're going through research. There's a number of key gates that you've got to go through. COVID hasn't helped. So I'm not at that point where I'm creating anything around, when I look at the funnel, you mentioned awareness, consideration, and purchase. I'm just creating content right now that's in LinkedIn around every week, a blog article. Do you think that's hindering my process, that I'm not thinking right now about case studies, or I don't even have a drip email campaign or newsletters because I can't communicate some of that information just yet?
Yeah, I mean, you can do bottom of funnel pieces that are not necessarily directly like a case study or directly related to a sale that you've done. You know, a bottom of funnel piece can be something like a checklist or a template that people enter their email address to download, because then you have their email address and then you can start conversation, like an individual conversation with that person, because they've expressed an interest in working with you by downloading that case study or that template or that checklist. So it doesn't have to be directly related to projects that you've been working on. I mean, at the awareness stage as well, awareness is about education. So education is not necessarily about education about the brand. The brand tends to come in at mid funnel. The awareness is, you know, more around like the value of consulting, say. Obviously just made that up, but, you know, very top of funnel for people who don't know you yet, but are thinking about, okay, well, we have this problem and we want to get a consultant in to help fix us. So what is that problem? And, you know, I would create content around the problem and, you know, the different ways that it can be solved, it can be fixed, and provide, you know, if somebody was to ask you, okay, I've got this problem, what do I do? You know, creating content around, okay, well, this is what you do, and, you know, providing that answer and that, that level of information, as well as the mid funnel, because it sounds, I could be wrong, but it sounds like you're creating mostly mid funnel content if you're talking about the brand and about, you know, what the brand itself does, and the brand comes in at the mid funnel stage.
Yeah, there's a bit of both. There's a bit around the brand that I'm trying to interweave into the content, but then I'm finding insights I want to share about, you know, how consumer behavior is changing, how category expectations are moving on, and how it's accelerating. And I'll take an example like, let's say, the gum category or soda. I'll find relevant examples, but then I'll weave in a bit more about how being socially minded and impactful about, you know, your impact and the contribution you makes these changes. So there's a bit of both going on.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, yeah, I mean, because that leadership content on like your opinions on that topic are really great. But yeah, for bottom of funnel, I mean, you can do things like, I mean, for brands who can't do case studies, quite often they do use cases that like paint the picture of what it might look like. They often do anonymous case studies. So this is particularly in cybersecurity. Nobody ever wants to admit that they've had a cybersecurity problem. So very few clients actually want to be in a case study for cybersecurity clients. Or for our clients who are cybersecurity, their clients almost never want to be in a case study because they don't want to admit they've had a cybersecurity problem, especially if they're a big global brand. So what we do with their case studies is we anonymize them. So we take out the details, and, you know, rather than saying X brand, we say big global brand working in this space. So, you know, it's not traceable back to them, but it still tells the story of, you know, the problem that they had and how the company solved that problem, and then, you know, what the end result was. So there's many different ways you can do case studies, but bottom of funnel content doesn't only have to be case studies. It can also be checklists or templates. It's basically anything that somebody might want to download in order to, you know, take their relationship basically with you one step further. So, I mean, perhaps there's frameworks that you use or templates. A lot of the consultants I know have templates on, you know, decision making or things like that. You can even do one of the things that's quite popular these days is online, like interactive quiz, like, you know, find out your personal branding score, find out your sustainability score, and they take, you know, a little quiz, and then you send them a little mini report that doesn't take you much time to put together on what that quiz means and some of the things that they could be doing to improve that.
Brilliant. That's really great. Thank you so much for that.
That's okay.
I just have one question on SEO optimization. I saw that you, by the way, great presentation, thank you. I saw that there was in the chat that you've put about the free trial for SEO. Like, that's the one thing that I'm kind of, the content, I know that's a bit of a process and you've got to go through it, but the SEO, it feels a bit more like the unknown for me personally. And I just wondered if you had any kind of advice about that.
Yeah, a little bit of a plug maybe for ourselves, because we run a 10-week SEO course. So if you're looking to learn more about SEO, we have a 10-week SEO course that would teach you the foundations of being able to create SEO optimized content, because it's quite a big space. Takes some learning and some practice. SEMrush is a free tool that I mentioned. So, well, they're not free. They have a free trial. They have a free trial where you can get into the tool, but the tool is very comprehensive. So if you don't have any like if you're brand new to SEO, you're probably going to find it a little overwhelming. So I might wait on that free trial until you do a little bit of training and understand SEO, because you can obviously only do it once. For people who do understand SEO, you know, it's a really great tool. We use it in our agency, but it does everything. So it's really comprehensive. So I wouldn't go in there, you know, without any knowledge, because then you wouldn't know where to look or what to do. And it doesn't really teach you so much. It's kind of more of a tool for getting search volumes and keyword difficulties and gap analysis and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I guess I would probably recommend our 10-week SEO course or a other SEO course of some
Thank you.
shape and form. It's okay, no worries.
I think there are no more questions on the chat. So if no one has any other questions, I think we can wrap 2 minutes early, give everyone a few minutes back of their time. And again, I want to say thank you on behalf of WEConnect International and everyone on the call. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kathryn. It's been great. And I think we'll be able to send you the slides on our follow-up email, as well as the recording for those of you that want to revisit it. So thank you, everyone.